This morning a word came to mind, sincerity. And I remember when we were students in school, it used to be a very good word. Uh, if somebody, any teacher called you a sincere student, our parents would be very happy, and you could also look forward to the rest of the year. uh, I have been thinking, even as a writer, sometimes some words are losing. Uh, I don't know whether it's credibility or they are just losing their emphasis in the market, or if people have stopped using them because they are no longer relevant. Uh, so, on that note of thinking about sincerity, I welcome all of you and my guest Hemant Gupta to this rabbit hole of thought again. Welcome Hemant to the show.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Bunty. It's always a good exploration with you. Thank you so much.
Um, so, what is sincerity in today's day and age?
Yeah. I think there are, whenever I've come across these kinds of words, there are a few things that um, help me. One is doing the kind of, archaeology of language. Because most of these words we do not know. You and I, if we were told, we were asked, or anybody on the planet were asked, when did you first learn about the word sincerity? I don't think any of us, at least I believe nobody can answer that question. And then over the period of our life, we keep gathering, all these words, concepts. And in the initial period, we're imitating others, we're trying to use them, look for relevance. And then over a period of time, we try to write them, surf on them, and sort of become extremely confident that we know what it means. And then the other also knows, at least to some extent, what it means. And then we are indicating to the same thing. Um, but the practice of holding a word in an awareness ever so often and then going deeper into it could inform us of a lot of things. One is general and one is particular. The general aspect is to become a little more humble about the words that we use, not just this word sincerity, is to also develop the practice of going below the word, underneath the word, inside the word, adjacent to the word. And the particular aspect is let's take a look at the word sincerity. So can I invoke this word here and now? I think sometimes I use this as a device, whenever a concept comes in, I try to ask myself in whatever I'm doing at that particular moment, what's the relevance of that word in this context, this here and now that you and I are exchanging right now. So I think in a way, is your question sincere? Am I receiving it sincerely? Am I attempting to respond to it sincerely? And then what does this word sincerely actually mean? I would invoke what we wrote in our first book, that at some level we could say that the human being is a thinking, feeling, saying, doing species. We think, we feel, we say, we do. Now these words are placeholders because thinking has intentions and other things. Feeling has all kinds of sensory inputs that we have. Saying is not just saying, all forms of communication, all aspects of communication. And then you have doing. Now, in the answering of this question, are these words flowing from sincerity? Like, as I'm speaking with you, is it a sincere connection to what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling right now inside of me? I can very well put up a show right now just to impress someone, or if I'm narcissistic, just be full of myself. And then when I speak of some words, am I actually being very sincere and true to how they connect to my other words that I've spoken in the past or what I will say in the future and my actions? We say so many things, but we don't do them. We do so many things and we don't say them. And there are very seldom that we have the saying and doing alignment. So at a fundamental level, it's about the alignment and the chemistry that we have between our thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. Uh, it is not to say that we always need to have these alignments and coherence, because the incoherence actually can give us creativity. Sometimes when our thoughts are not married to feelings or they're divorced from feelings, that can give rise to a riot inside, but then it also gives an emergence of a creative idea. So we need both the alignment and the non-alignment of our thinking, feeling, saying, and doing, which means sincerity and insincerity of some sorts. But over a period of time, it should be in the service of some greater good for self and for others and for the planet. One last bit. Uh, Another device that we can use to look at the word sincerity is, how is sincerity as a concept connected to breathing? Is it even a word that applies to the breathing that we do? Or how is sincerity connected to the digestion system, which, I had a breakfast in the morning and now it's getting digested and I'm not putting in any particular conscious effort for it to be digested? Is sincerity a word where, involved in my digestion? So when we go down that path, we can see that the word has more clear and direct applications somewhere and connection somewhere, and then it doesn't really seem to have connections in other places in our lives. Uh, which brings me to the final point on this, that uh, suppose I love doing podcast and you love doing podcasts, and we both get on podcasts often and we have these conversations, and over a period of time we start becoming very familiar, very easy, very saral, sahaj about doing the podcast. I don't think the word sincerity would have too much application in this, except that we need to be honest and truthful and, to the mission we have on hand. I think the word sincerity is applicable where things become difficult for us. Uh, and then does our character have that ability to rise above the inner turmoil and the outer turmoil, to be committed to something and stay sincere to it? Whether it's a value upholding or what we have said and we have to do, live up to the promises, or something that we're working on a project and we need to keep that as a vector and be sincere, even if we are not liking it. So these are some initial, sorry, thoughts.
Uh, with your initial thoughts, a couple of questions arose. One that I had already decided that I wanted to bring in at some point in the conversation, but I'll park that for now. I'll just go with what you said. So one of the thoughts that was sparked was that the example of, we think, we feel, we say, we do is not the first time you brought this up on the podcast. In fact, it must be the third or the fourth time. So the idea is that if you're bringing this up again, and both of us seem to know it and are aware of it, are you saying that the next time that I bring up the same word or the same phrase or the same line, I am not sincere about it, or does the objective of checking sincerity become a little more, because one shouldn't make it a habit to be using a certain line, like a catchphrase or a word that may not contain the meaning that you want it to at that point of time. So my submission to you is, how does one do a sincerity check? Whether sincere or insincere is fine. I agree with you that there are reasons why one can move away one focus to either create chaos or be part of the created chaos unintentionally. But those are again manifestations. My question is, when you are being deliberate about it, when does the sincerity check come in? Have you ever given any thought? Can you give us examples of? You mentioned our podcast. You can continue the same example. and then elaborate a little deeper on the sincerity check part of it. If there is a check like that, or is it always in retrospect?
Yeah. Um, Again, a wonderful invocation, Bunty. Um, well, long back, when I was scribbling, there was an interesting scribble that happened through me to me. Imagine we were to write action one, action two, action three, action four, action five. And then the word action here is also, let's say, speaking is an action in some sense. Uh, and then let's say on the top we write principle or value one, principle or value two, principle value three, principle value four. So let's say there are different principles: honesty, beauty, uh, sincerity, truth, goodness, right, whatever. I mean, and we're not getting to the definitions of them. In my personal meditations, I've realized that uh, if I become a decent student of my own journey, then it's very difficult to draw a very direct line and say that this principle is in this action and no other principle is here. So actually, if you map them, you'll find that all principles are present in all actions, directly or indirectly. Now, sincerity can be one of them. And sometimes yes, sometimes it comes into an awareness, uh, and you try to then reference check it whether you're being that or not, and then you try and make course correction or at least become aware that you're not. You do it over a period of time. At some point, it becomes a second nature. It becomes system one, effortless, habituated. Uh, so we all end up, actually, we are all in some sense uh, reproducing some of these filters and checks and references until such time that we become aware that we're doing it and we want to introduce another filter, another check. So that's the broad framing that I have. With concerns to a podcast, yes, I think over a period of time, so early on, when let's say 2017, 18, when I first did my first interaction on such a platform, when I was interviewing Chaitman Tan of Google, he was the jolly good fellow at Google. That was his title. And I have faint recollection. I was not in my body in that conversation. I was extremely anxious. It was my first podcast. Uh, I was not spontaneous. I was scripted quite a bit. Though a lot of things did come spontaneously also. Over the years, I have realized that I have, through practices, become slightly more anchored to the spontaneity and becoming aware of the body in the moment, even as I'm listening or responding, becoming aware of my breath, becoming aware a little bit about my posture, the feelings inside, ever so often, not all the time. And that I think gives me a grounding of what I'm receiving and what I'm sharing. And that I would call sincerity of sorts, that I believe that this is important, that I try to bring whole presence here. And that's the way sincerity can show up in this conversation. Do I mistake? Do I get carried away sometimes? Do I falter? Yes, several times. But the go back to vector is to do it little more often and often and often till it becomes slightly more second nature.
Okay, a wild tangential question that arose while you were answering this. We did speak a bit on this last week, I think, once, whether one is getting addicted to insights of sorts and taking things far too seriously and going down uh, rabbit holes because that has become a fun part of it. Oh, this is what I've cracked. Oh, this is an insight I didn't know before now. oh, this works like this. So, like a kid being thrown in a room full of uh, fun and enjoyment through toys or games or some such thing. So, I have a friend who is one of my uh, good friends from the time my initial forays in serious seeking, if I were to call it. There is no such thing per se, but just for want of a better term. He works in the fire brigade, very down to earth guy. The way he speaks is very. So he used to say, सब सब स्वेटर का धागा है, किधर से भी पकड़ेगा तो पूरा स्वेटर खुल जाएगा. And I oftentimes find that this is one of the uh, beautiful learnings of life, if one were to call it that. Like really, anything that you pick up can actually become a source of sincerity and wisdom, if I were to use terms uh, loosely. And yet, there is this understanding that, oh, week after week, I have to put up a podcast. Uh, there is this pressure of getting a guest, having a topic that is relevant. Uh, while that is on, to be aware that one is being sincere and authentic and not saying things for the heck of saying it, using words a lot more mindfully. I find the quality of listening changes episode to episode. Earlier, I was far more into it. Some days, when I am pressured by other things other than the podcast, I find the mind wanders sometimes. Thankfully, it is more often than not in the podcast and the listening. But there are days when some answers are really not easy to digest. I may have some kind of aversion to it, unknowingly, obviously. And on the other hand, you're still saying that. So let me use a phrase. Do we need to come and be present for anything, any of the good qualities to come up? Focus, sincerity, uh, understanding. Is it a prerequisite to be available to the moment as best as we can with all our faculties, at least organized for the wee bit of time that we are inhabiting that moment in? Uh, that's my question. Do I really need to be present for good things to happen to me, in that, in the sense of good things obviously again become relative, but I'm saying if I'm seeking an answer to something, if it's a genuine inquiry into understanding of mind and matter, of how things work, what is the universe, uh, what is life about, the purpose of life, any of these kind of deeper questions that won't have a uh, instantaneous answer, although maybe it will be an instantaneous answer, we are forever walking towards that instant that it may happen. So there are layers and layers of thought there, and how do you how do you bring about a sense of something that is so huge, and when words are so limited, and you've already, I think, in your first answer disqualified all our answers in the podcast by saying, we presume that I know the word. I presume that I have used it enough number of times to understand what it means. I presume that you understand the same meaning the word gives. So already a lot of things are in flux, if I were to call them. How do you ground yourself? How do you have a real conversation? How do you be present? Uh, and does being present depend on words in a conversation?
There are multiple things to that, Bunty. Again, wonderful invocation. So there are times when we all would have had this experience that there is a thing that you're trying to solve or get through. You're trying, it's just not working. You're not able to come up with an idea, or you're not able to get across your point of view to another person, or a vexing issue that just doesn't leave you. It's been long that you've been battling with it. We've all had that experience of the constant trials and errors and attempts, and then sometimes when you've sort of surrendered or micro surrendered, something emerges as an something emerges as a crack of light. There's that. Um, Now, if you were to ask the question, were you present when you were trying and trying and trying? Were you present when the idea emerged? Actually, uh, there can be an answer to it, but I think over a period of time, our attention spans are becoming narrower and narrower. We want to get to the point as fast as possible. We want things simple, easy, instant. While it has a place in our life and society, I think if the pendulum swings too much on one side and we do not become aware of the effortful, the deliberative, the suspension of conclusion, the turn towards experimentation, then we might have challenges in how we experience the here and now and what we give in the here, both what I'm taking in and what I'm giving out. In that sense, I think there is presence over a period of time that one needs to cultivate to become aware of what I'm taking from the outside and what I'm giving outside, whether it's consumption, ideas, opinions, whatever. But if life's working for you, you don't have any issue. Like Swami Sarvapriyananda keeps saying that if life's working for you and it's working, then you don't need to come to Vedanta. If it's not working, if something's not working and you really have been trying at it, maybe you need to go a little deeper, and then obviously you need to visit some of these philosophies and practices. Um, that's one. Second, I think what has also increased in the last look, words have been around for long, but humans have been around more than words have been around. And then the question is, how did humans get through when there were no words? And the answer is the whole non-verbal coordination, signaling mechanism. And even after words came in, we do have these coordinating, the non-verbal coordination. And there are two things that happen there. One is, most of the time, we have now become preoccupied, or we are not aware that we are occupied with discussing about there and then and that. We're not discussing about here and now and this. So we are trying to bring all kinds of there, then and that, past, present, future, others, self, in-group, out-group, nation, terror attacks, and peace, everything. We're trying to bring that in here and now. And we are discussing what a psychologist calls propositional tyranny. We are only exchanging these words to indicate something, which is indicating something else, which is indicating something else, of somebody who's said and somebody who's suffered. And there's this whole barrage of words, tyranny of words, attack of words. While it is useful, we need that. But I think we are not becoming aware that we're losing our connections to our bodies, our emotions, our sensations, and how these propositions are connecting with us or not. So most of the times we are living here in our heads. We don't even know what our body is doing. How my body is participating in this. Am I able to tap my body intelligence in this answer? Am I able to tap my breath intelligence in this answer? My emotions in this answer? once the podcast gets over, you would go do a bunch of things. I would go do a bunch of things. But if I'm not there in my body then, and I'm constantly just processing this, what I've done is I've spent another 2 hours on the planet in this life without having a slightly more holistic experience of life. Why? Because I have only just played around with words and words and words and opinions and judgments and judgments. So I think there is a hyper mentalizing of our life. I think we need to go back and draw a balance with body and emotions and doing, you know, rather than just exchanging a lot of words and trying to get our consumption through that or our earnings through that or our social status through that. I think that is a big discipline that needs to come in self and or people around and the society. The the going back to actions, grounding our body to some actions, doing them sincerely and feeling that ground, having a sense of some ground, and then using that to relook at words and propositions that we exchange. Unless we do that over a period of time, my worry is uh, we'll just go deeper and deeper into this verbal warfare with each other. I don't know whether I've addressed your question. Um,
It's a fascinating, insightful answer on too many fronts, and a lot of lateral thoughts also entered my being at that point. Uh, so, if one were to come down to brass tacks, uh, how can one give meaning to one's words, irrespective of uh, the warning that you put up in your last answer? This happens to be the first known communication that seems to happen among all of us most of the time. While it may not be the most ideal way to go about it, but most of us understand words more than body language, and even if one does understand, it is an undercurrent that is directly understood and maybe not given enough emphasis to in the heat of the moment, perhaps. Uh, how does one calm down to come to the stage that you mentioned? Okay, for 1 second, let me make the question more self centric. Till there is an event, uh, it's far more difficult because there is something or the other that keeps happening. If I have a thought about you, you may also have a thought about me. If I express myself, you may also express yourself. If we have a condition that we are dealing with, an event that we are part of, a project that we are talking about, or a or even a thought that we are discussing, there has to be two people. Uh, how does this monologue be quietened? What are the things that you particularly do in your practice to come back to the body? Because I've used these terms quite often with people who are little agitated at some point, and they've called, and some point during the conversation I may have said, do you know where your little toe is right now? Or do you know where your bum is? Which part of the bum is hitting the seat? What is the kind of pressure? Is it equal on both sides? Is it lesser or more? Are you standing up? Are you sitting down? Are you on a wooden desk? Where is your elbow? Things like those. But they seem to, like, there is nothing that can be taught about it. you have to keep coming back to your body. There is really not much rocket science to it. I need to know where my toe is to need to know it. I need to give it attention at that point of time. There is no lesson how to do it. And the more one does it, the more one gets uh, learned in doing it. Uh, I remember this seems like deja vu kind of a question that I have asked you earlier. What are the practices that you do? But can you bring this back because you've been talking about sincerity in a manner which seems like presence, which was also one of my questions, and which seems like there has to be a holistic nature of being in every moment, in every time and space that we find ourselves. Not idealistically, but so that we can live it fully, if one were to use a term. Uh, you you mentioned quite a lot that 13, 14 years back you weren't the same person that you are now. So let me get into a mental space there. Where did you trip? Are there any milestones in the journey where you thought that you tripped and you needed to go deeper and see it differently? What is the reason for your quote unquote sincerity in the moment to arise? What what provoked you to relook at the premise that we all take for granted? Oh, I am sitting on a floor, what is there to look? Oh, I am sweating, what is there to think about sweating? Or oh, my head is paining, oh, it's paining because I didn't sleep well last night, or I've been watching too much of TV or content on my laptop, mobile. So it seems but obvious. But how do you make the but obvious feel a little less obvious and more mindful?
I don't think I have an answer to the question. The what is the what provoked and what were the sparks or what are the thresholds or any of that. I don't know whether I have an answer for that. I think what can be said is the following, that there are some things called as isolated practices, where you are to yourself in a certain time at a certain time of the day, in a certain posture, doing certain practices all by yourself. Then there is the integration of practices, wherein as I speak with you right now, can I be doing some of those practices even as I speak with you or listen to you? Now, so if you were to have an x-axis of isolated practice and integrated practice, and let's say y-axis of individual and institutional. So you'll actually have four kinds of practices: individual isolated practice, individual integrated practice, institutional isolated practice. So institutional isolated practice could be, let's say you and I are an institution. We we decide that we'll put this podcast for hold for 5 minutes. You'll go do what you feel to be centered, and I'll go do what I feel centered to be centered. So then we would both do an isolated practice, but it's institutionalized because we both agree to that contract. The institutional integrated practice would be where we both practice the same at the same time. For example, you might say that after every 10 minutes, we should have a pause and we should be there together in the pause. Or we should have some kind of thing where we go back to challenging fundamental assumptions or speaking a certain way, rephrasing. Uh, if there is an emotion that is very heavy right now, there should be a space for us to exchange. So those would be institutional integrated practices. So in essence, we require that as a society we require all four kinds of practices to be brought in. It's difficult to get the other person to align, with you. So then those institutional practices, whether isolated or integrated, they take a backseat. Only a few companies in the world, or few religion or communities actually are able to do that, where they come together and practice something together, whether it's silence or form of exchange in actions or speech or exchange of feelings. Most of the time, most people actually end up doing a lot of isolated individual practice. Individual integrated भी difficult हो जाता है उनके लिए. जैसे if I'm speaking with you right now, I over a period of time, if I become aware of my posture and how that posture contributes to the conversation, over a period of time, you become a student of that. You understand, certain posture is giving a certain bowl in which to receive you, but a certain posture gives another bowl to receive. And if I become aware and I keep experimenting over a period of time, it becomes natural for me to then become aware of the bowl with which I'm receiving you and I'm giving. And it's practice, 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 practice all the way. No perfection. You just keep experiencing this thing where you like practicing, where practicing becomes interesting for you, and that itself is a fruit to you. Uh,
Uh, One aspect that I give a lot of credence to, uh, so now I will have to say two things that I give credence to, because uh, another thought also came to mind. One is the ambience. Uh, what is the ambience that I am creating, co-creating, uh, willing to be part of? Second is uh, how much am I willing to uh, invest in it? These two things are very strongly impacting the practice that one does. Uh, if I am a beginner in any kind of practice that involves silence, and if I choose a place which is very loud, then it becomes difficult to uh, calm down and reach that place. Second, how much am I willing to invest in this whole thought that okay, I want to practice this, and I have the obstacles of the mind keeping me from reaching a certain point of calm and peace and presence and awareness and consciousness, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, these words have separate meanings, different layers of thoughts, but these are just boxes of thought which can be pursued separately. These two things to me are extremely important, and one of the struggles that people I try to help is with the immediacy of the results that they want from this kind of practice. Now the problem is if we both decided silence is a good way to be, like every day we decide 20 minutes of silence, every morning, wherever you are, wherever I am, at 10 we'll institutionalized or individual, that doesn't matter to this practice as of right now. But we decide that 20 minutes a day we will practice silence and just be with ourselves, not engaging with our devices or people or events, and just be there. Now on the third day itself I say, अरे कुछ हो तो नहीं रहा, अरे why are we doing this, and we are really, मतलब क्या ही होने वाला है, उधर घर पे तो वही तमाशा चालू है और मेरे दोस्त लोग फ़ोन कर रहे हैं, मुझे तो बाहर जाना था, मुझे तो मूवी देखनी थी, मुझे ये सीरीज़ कंप्लीट करनी है, मेरे को ये काम कर लेना है, मुझे स्कूल जाना है, ना कॉलेज जाना है, ना ये करना है, ना वो करना है. Now this doing thing का over dependence, while it is important to do, but doing is a big word actually. It covers a lot of aspects, The non-doing consciously initial will be doing, obviously. I remember there was this one guy who I was discussing the difference between his running a marathon and he being silent and reaching a point of what he called meditation and what I was describing at that point of time. And I was like, oh no, that's not what I'm talking about. And he says, but you are as addicted to your idea of what it means as much as I am addicted to this. And I was discussing this with another person who does the same kind of practice that I do. And he said, why didn't you say yes to that? It is true. And that kind of liberated me from a certain thing that I had never thought about, that okay, yeah, I am new to this. I haven't reached a point where it is natural to me to be silent inside and out. Right now it requires that amount of effort. So my question to you, uh, because what we practice more or less seems the most obvious thing and does not seem to give away any kind of good results in the immediate. It may not. Sir, if I am in my thought process, it's past karma also. But let's not get down that place right now. How do you negotiate the immediacy problem in a world where everything is so much overemphasized upon results? In fact, I want to connect it to another uh, question I wanted to start the podcast with. Is sincerity a drawback in today's times, considering that uh, there is just no emphasis on it? It's results, results, and results all the way, and immediate results, and quick results, and go getter attitude, and aggression, and holding flags, and uh, the podcast being an example. Very often, even I feel that, oh, I should do something more dramatic, and just that it is not authentic to me, and I promise myself that this is the path that I want to take. But I cannot deny that there is a pressure at times to do something which might get me eyeballs. Coming from my background in advertising, it wouldn't be so difficult if I just decide to be a little over enthusiastic about it. So my question to you is that those pressures are real. So does sincerity become a casualty in these kind of conditions?
The bunch of things, Bunty, you invoke. I hope I remember some of them and address them. Couple of clarifications. One is, I'm not saying presence is the only thing, and uh, that here and now is the only thing. I'm wanting to qualify that. I'm saying wherever we are, there is the here and now and this, and then there is this connection with there, then, and that, whatever that there, then, and that is. Now, over a period of time, when you become a little more, your practices are slightly more mature, marinated, you're able to invoke this, or a combination. It becomes on demand. So it's not just what's happening in my body right now, and that's more important. Depending on the situation, you use the vivek to figure out what's important at that point, and then you invoke one of the two or combination of the paradigm. Whether actions can lead, running can lead, flow experience. In fact, I remember. I wish I could remember the 3 or 4 names. Tagore wrote a book on Kabir's poem. You have to start that book. I just read a couple of pages, and he actually mentions 3 or 4 names, of people who are everyday people. He's mentioning a cobbler, he's mentioning a weaver, he's mentioning a butcher, he's mentioning a woodcutter, and these names, actually, these people he's mentioning went on to become sagely. And they derived a lot of that from their actions. So it can come from running, it can come from just making tea. In fact, Japan has a legend that uh, there is a certain Master Rikyu, if I'm not if getting the name right. All he would do, he would be outside the city, had a small tea stall. People would come there, sit quietly, have tea, and go back. And they would just watch all his actions. He would just make a simple tea, and it becomes a certain thing. In fact, I should connect this with something that we're planning to write in our upcoming book. There is Hazrat Inayat Khan, a Sufi mystic, uh, maybe a couple of centuries back, and he wrote about the development of the art and the artist. And he says there are four stages of development. So the first stage is imitation. You imitate. You see somebody's craft and you're imitating. Second stage is suggestive. You start becoming little more, it's little incrementally, you become symbolic, indicative. Third stage is creative. The fourth is interesting. Fourth is where you have a direct expression of the soul. You become a living art. The way you speak, the way you conduct yourself is art itself. And then whatever you do is an expression of that soul, that art. These layers, whether it comes early in somebody's life, late or never, at least I don't know how it happens. But it certainly cannot happen without practicing them over a period of time. And even if somebody achieves that early, let's say somebody achieves the final stage early, the person has to live that right over a period of time. It's still practicing. So practice before, during, or after that space is still practice. And there's no getting away from that practice. At some stage it becomes second nature because it's directly, it's sincere, it's integrated inside, it's flowing. You're not trying to, even that effortfulness that is required is coming from some space of commitment or a sincerity towards a mission. There is an effortlessness towards devoting yourself to that, and then you let the body do the thing, even if the body is being difficult. So yeah.
Uh, so there is something that I've been avoiding to say on this podcast, but now I think you have kind of ended the answer, and I was planning to end the podcast with your answer. So I actually looked up the meaning or a synonym of uh, sincerity just to trigger some thoughts on, because it almost seemed like a word that I haven't seen or observed or used in a long time, and I needed some kind of external trigger point to have some thoughts. And it said that uh, it is something that somebody does neither to impress nor to deceive. And I thought it was a very fascinating aspect of what sincerity meant. And you kind of have ended there as well, saying that, you know, to me, the bigger thing is the choice that you make about how you are looking at the subject itself. What are you being? What are you doing with it? What are you feeling about it? How do you arrive at that, whatever it is that you arrive at, fully, as fully as you can, as consciously as you can, as integrated as you can be.
Yeah.
And the word hasn't disappointed, and so haven't you. Please, please.
Yeah. One thing that I didn't address is sincerity becoming outcast in society in some sense. And um I'm sorry, there was something coming up and this was emerging. Just bear with me for a minute.
Yeah.
I think it just wither away. If it comes, I'll share with you. Basically, I think the indicative was that societies will keep having some currencies, over a period of time. You look around, there's certain things will be more. A lot of people will think this is more in the run. For example, if somebody brings you 1,000-year back coin and says, take this and use it. Now, unless it's a precious coin that you can trade for a bigger amount. But obviously, when you go out and if it doesn't have value, people won't take it, right? So you have a currency. So society works on certain currencies. Um, I think ultimately, so if I were to ask you, did you wake up in the morning and said that today I want to meet the most dishonest person on the planet? Today I want to transact with the most brutal human being. Today, please send all the insincere person on the planet to me so that I can do the best work that I can. That will help me in my life. Uh, I don't think any of us get up in the morning to meet such kind of people. There may be some people, I don't know if they wake up and do this.
If they would be saints trying to influence their
Maybe
lives in a good
transform.
way.
Yeah, that could be a thing. Daku Ratnakar is a classic case. Daku Ratnakar became Valmiki because he met a saint and suddenly he was transformed. So that could be those kind of instances. But what I'm saying is we don't wake up. We
Yeah.
all we all want to meet certain kind of people. And of course, if you're a spiritual doctor, then you see everybody as a spiritual patient and you want to meet all kinds of patients. Let's say Doctors Without Borders function on the whole idea of being more medically upright and the right to medical attention rather than the right side of the right or the wrong side of the right. So I think we want to meet more and more sincere people, but when you don't get that, then you get angry. You don't know how to deal with it. So if it's working for anybody and says कि हाँ यही करना है मैं भी ऐसे ही करूंगा and इसी तरह के लोग होने चाहिए, so you're trying to subscribe to a certain society, and every day that you sign off on that, you're subscribing for that society to be in a certain way. And if you don't want to do it, then be the change.
Yeah. That was a lovely end to the podcast because you now just raised the whole thing from personal to global with that one line. That everything that I want and I'm being is also an indicator how the world will be today. So thank you so much, Hemant. As always, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks,
I'll see
thanks
you
a
soon.
lot. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.